Hey guys, Mike here, and in this video, I'm going to explain why you should start mastering enemy phase. And by mastering enemy phase, I mean basically doing more damage and taking a little bit more risks on enemy phase. But as you'll find out at the end of the video, you really aren't taking more risk. You're actually just playing better and doing more damage and just having a really fantastic enemy phase. Okay, so the reason why you want to master enemy phase is because later on in the game, usually at the 2/3 mark, the game starts to actually get challenging, and a lot of the previously in the early parts of the game where you thought you could just take your time and stuff like that, the challenges in the maps for the later part usually require there's a lot of time requirements, or usually there's multiple squads that are bombarding you. So, and if it's the case that multiple squads are bombarding you, like first wave comes and then the second wave is going to come like on the turn after, that means you have to really optimize your enemy phase so that you can wipe out that first squad on the first wave, and then you have less enemies to deal with on the second turn when the second wave or the second enemy squad comes in and assaults you, right? So it's the game's way of telling you, hey, you have to stop playing passively and you have to start playing well on enemy phase. And that's what I find a lot of beginners don't do. They play very conservatively, and as a result, they get bombarded by too many units on the later turns, or they miss out on items because they can't reach certain objectives on time because they're just dilly-dallying and they're wasting time on enemy phase. So these are the reasons why you want to master enemy phase. Okay, so I'm going to teach you how to do it. Now, on enemy phase, you have two main objectives. The two main objectives are, one, don't get your units killed. Now, I think most people already understand that. Like, they obviously don't want their enemies to die. I mean, their ally units to die, right? Because then you're going to do a reset. Now, so what beginners will typically do is, because they understand that, that's why they play conservatively on enemy phase. Maybe they'll just put one really strong tank unit in range of just a couple units, just to aggro the units and get them charging at them so that they can deal with them. But you don't want to do that. What you want to do is, you do want to do that, but you want to expand upon that. You want to try and put as many units as possible in enemy range, but make sure that they're safe, right? So, when the enemy attacks multiple units, or even just one unit in multiple ranges of multiple enemy units, that unit can dish out as many counterattacks as possible. And the more counterattacks you dish out on enemy phase, that's basically more damage and more work already being done on enemy phase and before the next turn. So you're essentially getting 2 times the opportunities to attack the enemy, right? So and a couple things can happen too is when you counterattack the enemy, you can just totally wipe them out. And by the time turn 2 comes for the next player phase, then you already have so much more options you can do. You have more flexibility. You can, because you already killed so many units, you can start moving your ally units to the next objective and try to reach an objective, especially if there's a time limit, like a bandit is trying to destroy a village, or there's a unit that you want to recruit that there's kind of like a time limit on. So that's one reason. It frees up your player phase. Now, the next thing that can possibly happen is when you counterattack units, you don't actually kill those units, but you soften them up, right? You make them really weak. And when those units are really weak, again, that offers more flexibility on your player phase, because say 3 units assaulted your 1 unit and your 1 unit was able to counterattack but not kill any of them, then you have 3 weakened enemy units that are just up for pickings, where you can just pick any of your units you want to train, and then you can just kill them on your player phase. So it offers more flexibility, right? Because if you didn't do any damage to any of those units on enemy phase, then you have to use your player phase to, okay, how am I going to soften up this enemy, and then what unit am I going to use to kill that enemy? So that can potentially take up to 6 actions for 3 ally units. For 3 enemy units, it might take 6 of your ally units to kill those 3 enemy units, and that's very inefficient, right? It's essentially taking you 2 turns to do the work that a really good player could possibly have done by the end of enemy phase turn 1. So basically 1 turn, which is probably like 100% increase in efficiency, right? So so if you master enemy phase, then you'll just become a better player. You'll have it's basically you are doing all the hard work now, because it is hard to play enemy phase. You have to get good. It is hard to play enemy phase, but if you do that hard work, then it rewards you because you have so much more flexibility on player phase. You can get more items by getting more objectives. There's just so much more flexibility, and then you feel like you're actually getting good at the game. Now, the one thing you have to do on enemy phase. So okay, the first objective was to make sure none of your units die, right? And beginners, like I said, beginners will do that by just playing chicken, basically. The second thing is do as much damage, right? But I want to return to point one. So point one, you have to make sure your units don't die, right? Okay, so the way you do that is you just have to calculate everything, right? So I gave that first example. You have to send, so whatever unit you are putting in range of enemy units, you have to count how many attacks that they're going to take from the enemy units. So make sure you're not getting doubled. I mean, you can put you can put an ally in enemy range that will get doubled, but you just have to make sure you know that it's going to get doubled, right? And again, it's usually in Fire Emblem games, it's the enemy has +4 attack speed over your unit, right? So you're counting how many attacks that your unit is going to take. So for example, my unit is not going to get doubled, then and I put them in range of 3 units, it's going to take 3 attacks. Now you just do subtract from their attack your defense, and that's how much damage you're going to take. You just total up all that damage and make sure that number is less than your total HP, right? Because once you take all that damage, in the worst case scenario, you may dodge some, but in the worst case scenario, so you get hit by all those attacks, you can just heal up your damaged unit on player phase with your healer. And as a result of that, your healer also gets experience because your healer is constantly healing, right? You don't want, that's another thing for healers too, is when you think about it, healers can only gain experience by healing, unless they can do light magic at range and stuff. But for healers, you want them always doing actions every turn, right? If your healer is not healing every turn, then they are losing out on experience, and you're just not playing as efficiently. And sometimes that's not the end of the world, but if you just want to play more efficiently and you already know you're going to survive enemy phase, why not just heal up your unit and get more experience and build up that weapon rank and stuff like that, right? So the healer, that's another thing too. Your healer will be doing work, getting experience. You'll be doing more damage, damaging the enemies. So your that unit will be getting experience. Just everything is just being more efficient when you're doing more work on enemy phase, and that's by putting your units in range of enemy units, calculating how much damage that they're going to take in a worst case scenario, and making getting those counterattacks on their enemies when they try to attack you. And then when player phase comes for the next turn, on your turn, then you just finish off those enemies, or you're just free to do whatever you want. So that's how you play more efficiently, and you'll find in the end game where the objectives become a little bit more challenging and more time constrained, you just have so much more freedom to do whatever you want, and you'll just feel really good to play in that end game scenario. So that's pretty much it for this video. Let me know what you guys think, and thanks for watching.